Very pleased to welcome our guest speaker tonight, Mr. Adam Paul, who is the Director of Government Affairs in the Office of the Mayor in the City and County of Denver. Welcome, Adam, and thank you for being with us tonight. I think the goal here is to educate the voters on the pros and cons of the two broad types of Colorado municipal governments. And remember that this is a presentation that will also be shared online after the fact, because I know council was the goal here for council was that you wanted the voters to get some education. And after this presentation, we will post this presentation on our website. So those who are not able to join us in person will be able to watch it afterwards. And with that, I will give the floor to Adam, and I believe our clerk has the presentation up. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council. Thank you for having me here this evening, and to our community members. My name is Adam Paul, and I've been associated with local government for some time. I grew up in Lakewood, and I served on the Green Mountain Water Board for 6 years. So as you know, there's a lot of different elected opportunities throughout the state of Colorado. After 6 years, I ran for the Lakewood City Council and served 8 years on the Lakewood City Council. And then in 2015, ran for mayor and did 8 years as the mayor in Lakewood. And my last year, I went east of Sheridan and joined Mayor Johnston as his Director of Government Affairs, and kind of overlapped for a couple of months, which is a really cool opportunity. But I think a great opportunity for me to be here tonight is I've served as a council mayor, council manager, and served under a strong mayor. So we'll go ahead and get started, and please ask questions as we go. Just go ahead and stop me and we can roll from there. All right, so here's our two common forms of municipal government: council mayor, also called mayor council or strong mayor. Voters elect both a mayor and council. The mayor performs administrative duties. Second piece is that council manager, which I talked about at City of Lakewood. Most municipalities, except for I think 4 in Colorado, operate under the council manager. Voters elect both a mayor and council. Council hires a professional city manager to administer the day-to-day operations. All right, we'll get into a little bit of how it works. So council mayor, here's your structure. Your chief executive is your mayor. Legislative body is the council, makes those legislative actions. The mayor may have veto power, and then in some municipalities where the veto power is allowed, you can also have a veto override. So in Denver, there is a veto override for the mayor. Council may confirm appointments, I guess, as in Mountain View, and also City and County of Denver. There's quite a few by charter that are then ratified by the city council. Typical responsibilities: you oversee administration, council passes the ordinance, and then of course sets the policy, as you were doing earlier tonight. The org chart, we always have the voters at the top. They elect the mayor, the council in this form, and then from there it goes to your staff levels who rise up to the mayor. Council manager structure, the council is just strictly your policy making body. So coming together, really understanding what the community wants, and then directing the city manager to carry that out. They hire the town manager. The manager oversees the day-to-day operations, and the mayor serves as ceremonial presiding officer. Again, when you go to those responsibilities, sets policy and implements policy and oversees staff. Some council manager forms of government will also hire three bodies, maybe the judge, the town judge, the town attorney, and the city manager. So that's common in some communities. And there's the org structure again, always the voters, mayor and council, mayor as that figurehead, down to the town manager, and then you have your deputy department heads moving throughout the organization. All right. So here's, you can see arguments commonly made in favor of the council mayor. The primary benefit is that the voters choose directly who's going to do the day-to-day operations. That is who you want to see in there. That's what you run for, and you have that opportunity. You also have the veto authority, can serve as a check on council decisions. So on the flip side, your council manager form professional administrator selected based on those qualifications. So really, and this was born out of the progressive era of the early 1900s, and really tried to curb favoritism, go back to like Tammany Hall, those sorts of things, and really create a professional operation to run the day-to-day aspects of a city while having an elected body. So that nice blend of having both of those. Broader recruitment pool, because there can sometimes go outside of that town, or most likely would. More insulated from political influence, right? That they serve at the pleasure of the board, and then just really implement the policies that were there, and then deal with all the HR and things along those lines. Again, manager serves at the pleasure of the council, an emphasis on council policy-making role. So arguments commonly made against council manager. Manager holds significant administrative authority. Manager may be from outside the community, right? Especially in a smaller community like this, certainly that could be the case. Less direct accountability to the voters, and that just switches because all the accountability then lies with the body, with the elected body. Community may perceive a lack of visible political leadership, but again, that leadership is still in that elected realm. Managers may leave for higher paying positions. That's certainly a possibility. And potential confusion about roles, mayor versus manager. I can speak well to that. It can be very frustrating when you are in a manager form of government and your neighbor's street doesn't get plowed and they say, well, aren't you the mayor? Can't you get this fixed? And you say, have to explain to them how that works. So it can be kind of frustrating. And I actually call it a weak mayor form of government because that's just the way it is versus that strong mayor. All right. So going across the top of this table, you'll see the current Mountain View charter with no town administrator hired, and going down, you'll see the ceremony and legal head of government, and that would actually be the same for all three columns, mayor, mayor, mayor. Then when you move to who selects the chief administrative executive, the current structure is the voters. And then that second column, current Mountain View charter with a town administrator hired, would be the mayor. And then would be the voters. And then the third would be the council on the council manager. Who is the chief administrative executive? Currently be the mayor. Current Mountain View charter with a town administrator hire would be the mayor. And then in the council manager form, that's where you would see it change to your town manager. Role of town administrator currently, not applicable. And then the current Mountain View charter with a town administrator hired at the discretion of the mayor and council per job description and administrative policy and in accordance with your charter and adopted code. And then not applicable on the council manager. And then lastly, what is the removal mechanism for the chief administrative executive? Currently, it's an election or a recall. Current Mountain View charter with a town administrator hired, election or recall. And then on that last one, if you had a council manager, it would be council termination with a charge in writing and majority of council. So again, that goes back to the administrator, the manager's hired, serves at the pleasure of the city council or town council. So here's where you'll see a comparison of your trade-offs. Council, mayor, executive leadership through your elected mayor. So that's your neighbors, right? It's people within your community that you elect. May appoint a professional staff, chief administrator as the town administrator currently. Flip side is, again, you have that professional manager and most likely you would look for somebody who has really focused on that in their career, the day-to-day operations of running a community, planning, legal, all kinds of different experience that would help guide that. And then it's often compared to your school boards or superintendent model where the super's hired and serves again at the pleasure of the board. Costs are legit. I know, Mayor, you probably make a lot of money here, but salary of elected mayor versus professional mayor, much different. Certainly there's recruitment costs, potential turnover costs, and costs vary significantly by the size and local charter. A lot of communities also have a residential requirement for their town manager so that they live in that community or part of that community. It can be a little bit more challenging in smaller areas or where the cost of living is so high. Okay, so we mentioned 4 municipalities in Colorado run on a mayor council. Does anybody want to take a guess at who 4 of those are?
Pueblo, Denver, the Springs, here.
Yeah, well done. It's amazing. And you can see, I mean, some town manager or city manager forms of government. I mean, Aurora is a very large municipality under a city manager. And when you break that down, also not always do mayors vote. I don't know, Mayor, do you vote or you do cast a
Tiebreaker.
tiebreaker? So when I was mayor in Lakewood, I was actually a member of the body and I was able to vote. So they can vary in those structures as well, whether or not the mayor participates in voting or just really facilitates. That can come through your charter provisions and ordinances on how you develop that. And some municipalities appoint administrators or managers to coordinate operations. So there's a lot of different ways that different communities operate in this world. In fact, some communities elect their mayor from their body rather than at large. So there's a lot of different forms to the local governance. Effectiveness often depends on your leadership and coordination, clear administrative responsibility, and those local priorities. And those last 2 are really important because in council kind of manager type of governance, it can be tough because you are strictly the policy-making body, and those day-to-day operations are empowered to your town manager. And so, giving directives to staff, things along those lines. I read a little bit about kind of how you operate, same way, in how you administer or deal with staff. But, in the city of Lakewood, we were really limited to who we could, certainly could not direct staff in any fashion, and had to really work through the city manager to make sure that we were within the guidelines and operating within the structures of the city. Now in Denver, the mayor has close to probably 75 appointees, which I'm one of those, including all the agency heads, and it's much different. We can interact with staff on behalf of the mayor whenever we want or need to. So next. Sorry. Bless you.
It's switched on here. I don't know why it's not showing up there.
So questions voters may wish to consider. Oh, okay.
There you go.
As you continue these community conversations, and there's a lot of information through the National Civic League, through Colorado Municipal League, it really talks about how you can develop community conversations around these different opportunities and how you can build what's best for your community. You are very unique in where you are and how you operate, and a lot of community pride. And so that's important to take into account when you look at how you want to proceed into the future. And so how should executive authority be structured? How should accountability operate? And I think more so than ever, you've seen local government can really be challenged. You see a lot on the news. In fact, back in times when I was the mayor, I had a very challenging time kind of throughout a few of those years. And that's just the reality. You're the closest to the people, right? They see you at the grocery store. You're their neighbor. And so I think more than ever, it's that much more important to understand what that accountability looks like. What's the balance between political leadership and professional management is desired, and what governance structure aligns best with your community values? So in summary, both forms provide representative local government, include elected policy-making bodies, operate under state and local charter, have advantages and trade-offs, and the decision is about structure, not about any specific individual. I think with that, questions? Please, Mayor Pro Tem.
You mentioned the Colorado Civic League, is that correct?
The National Civic League.
National Civic.
Yep.
And then you also mentioned another resource?
Colorado Municipal League.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And the National Civic League really goes back to the early 1900s when they started developing, the structure of a manager form of government.
So off the top of your head, how many municipalities would you say that we have in the state of Colorado?
I think 271. I could be off by 2 or 3, but I think.
So of those 271, we have 4,
Yep.
right? We have the 3 large cities and our,
Yep.
I think we have a population right now of 511, is that right? So of those 271, how many have transitioned from a strong mayor to a manager form of government?
It's a great question. So I want to say, even within the last 2 decades, two went further towards the stronger mayor. So Pueblo became a strong mayor within the last 8 years, I believe. They had a much more unique council where they never had a mayor. I think they just had a body, basically a council, and that was how they operated. And then the Colorado Springs also gave more powers to their mayor. But I think what you've seen, being that there's only four, a lot of communities have probably gravitated more towards the manager council form of government.
And could you give a rationale as to why people or communities are focusing more towards that?
What I would say is there's a continuity of leadership that you get from having a professional manager of your city, right? You have your electeds who are part-time and are running businesses, raising families, doing a lot of other things. And so they really have their pulse potentially on the policy of what the community wants, the vision of what the community wants, but not always the engagement piece of that. And more so when you're looking at hiring a police chief or, other things they have just town managers or that professional manager can have more of that experience than say when I was mayor and I had operated small businesses or things like that. So I think it's that level of professionalism and a continuity of leadership because we all come and go, right? Term limits work. And so you're going to turn, people over and you're going to have the good institutional knowledge. And now the kind of lifespan for town managers, city managers, it's not long. It's a very challenging job. I think it could be 6 to 8 years. Kathy Hodson, who's just announced her retirement in Lakewood, was one of the most long-term, and she was at 18 to 19 years. So that's pretty rare to have somebody stay that long because you see sometimes you move on or a new board comes on and they're just not meeting, that manager's not meeting the goals that they want to see implemented, and it's time to have a separation and move forward. Yeah.
Do you happen to know how many staff report to the town managers in the strong mayor forms? I know you could probably speak to Denver, but I imagine they're much larger staffs than.
Yeah, so essentially in Denver, when you see that, you see the mayor at the top and he appoints all the agencies. So probably 11,000 people essentially respond to him. City of Lakewood, 3 responded to the council, right? That would have been the town man or the city manager, the city attorney, and the chief judge. But the chief judge then is up for reelection, retained by the people. So that kind of folds off after you appoint the judge. And then, in that community of Lakewood, I think that was like 1,100 employees. So it varies, and some municipalities might have other department heads that are hired through city council or approved or ratified by city council, even under the manager form. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. I was just kind of curious because we're, fairly small.
Yeah.
And those other strong mayor forms seem to have a lot more staff.
Yeah, they tend to be very large cities, but when you do, it's pretty fascinating. There's cities in the top, I think, 15 in the country that have manager forms of government. So when you kind of do a search and you can see it runs the gamut from very small to very large, ones that you would think would probably be a strong mayor in their manager forms. Yeah.
So in terms of what are the educational and experience qualifications for both?
Well, I was elected mayor, so the standards weren't very high. But the qualifications to be mayor, and I mean, you all know it's having your community has trust and faith in you, right? And they believe in you. You can really set up what you do want to see. What is unique to your community that you want to see in a CEO or a chief executive manager. And there's an international or a national organization that kind of gives credentials to city managers. and they can help build out kind of what those credentials look like. For instance, I can speak to, Kathy Hodson, who's leaving Lakewood, started out as a lifeguard at Morris Park Pool and worked at the city through college, and then went on and ran our parks department, and then came in as city manager. So it can be a real blended background of different things, but certainly management is going to be a big piece of that, and understanding community and community needs, and being able to work with a body. That's always tough. I would never want to be a city manager, frankly. I mean, because, right, you have 7 bosses here. In Lakewood, Kathy had 11 bosses, and it can be quite challenging. So that's another piece, is how do you really manage those council relationships and understand that they're the people that are out front. You're the one that's internal and really making sure that everything's working for the community and you're implementing the will of the council.
What are the requirements for a mayor in Lakewood?
I think you have to be 18 and a resident, or 21. I should know that. But there are no bona fide kind of credentialed background or anything along those lines.
So no HR, no finance?
Nope. And
That causes problems when you have a mayor that doesn't have a background?
Turn your mic on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So the question was, are there requirements for a mayor? And without those types of requirements, is that a challenge? I can't actually think of a locality, whether a strong mayor or not, that has any sort of requirements other than probably age and citizenship to be a mayor. And I'm not sure how you would implement. Certainly, it's great to have management backgrounds and understand, my current boss came from the nonprofit world and did some entrepreneurial things, right? So you kind of have a whole mix. I think Pueblo's mayor is a small business owner. Mayor Mobilati in Colorado Springs ran the chamber, so had some business background there. So it really does run the gamut.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that okay?
Public comment next.
Public comments next.
Can she have a question for the presenter?
We typically don't open up agenda items to the public, but
But this is a presentation to the voters,
yeah.
so it seems appropriate to me. Can we ask the council?
Yeah, I guess if there's no objection, you can just
Are
make
there
it
any
as a-
objections?
No objection.
Thank you. Go ahead.
You gave the cons of council management, but I didn't hear the ones for mayor.
Okay. So I'll repeat the question, like the cons of kind of mayor council versus, or council manager versus council mayor. And so these are opinions, having worked in both. And I would say the cons can be that lack of continuity, right? So every election cycle, there's a possibility that that mayor is going to change. And when you have a large organization, that could be 75 different appointees that are going to go, 27 department heads that serve at the pleasure of the mayor. That's all going to change and have that upheaval, right? So while many times the incumbent does get reelected, that's not always the case. I think also you lose out on institutional knowledge. So when Mayor Hancock left and Mayor Johnston came in, because you swept out that, most of those appointees, some were reappointed, you lost a lot of that institutional knowledge that a city manager who comes through these different kind of waves of elected bodies carries a lot of that institutional knowledge and has a lot more of that background. So that's what I would say are kind of a couple of the cons. And that would keep me also employed with my boss by not saying anything bad about him. Yes.
Did you say that there tends to be less engagement of model?
So in a manager model, so strong mayor, you're going to see your mayor out everywhere, right? They're going to want to be in the community and see. On a manager form, that's not really their job, right? Their job is to make sure the day-to-day operations are running, and they should be uplifting this body to be out in the community and supporting them, because this body is then strictly the policy-making body of your community. So that's where you'll see them take more of a back seat. You really don't want to see your city manager in the newspaper. Normally when you do, it's either because there's a retirement or they got in a car wreck on I-25 in a city vehicle and they shouldn't have been down there. Lakewood.
So would the council be policy-making thing?
Yep.
Not necessarily.
No, they would facilitate the community still, right? And really represent what the community would want going forward and what they would like to see. And then the town manager would be the one implementing that. If that makes sense. So they're going to have their pulse on all of that, but the day-to-day operations will still be with that manager in a more professional, full-time capacity. Yeah,
Just one more question, I promise.
you're good.
Can you talk about like checks and balances in both forms of government?
Yeah, so the main check on a strong mayor is going to be the voters. And so that's going to either be, you're doing a great job, we're going to reelect you, you're doing a bad job, we're going to recall you, or we're going to wait your term out and try to vote you out. The checks and balances with a city manager is there's that accountability to the body. If he or she is not doing their job, then you can take it upon yourself to remove them. You don't have that election piece, and then you can start that kind of cycle over again of what worked, what didn't work, what you want to see in that leadership moving forward. So I think those would be the main ones, is truly that accountability to the body versus the voters.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time today. We
great.
really appreciate
And
it.
if you have any other questions, I'm easy to find. I'm happy to chat. So thank you.
Thank you.